966.
Richard, my one big thing, a little bit lighter here. And we're gonna
yes, thank goodness.
No, but I mean, that was a really important topic. But I'm gonna try to keep this tight because there's so much going on with Neom these days, and if we don't mention it or talk about it now, then we will have missed 5 big stories over the last 10 days and another 5 in the next 10 days, and so we'll end up being way behind on it. The overarching theme here, Richard, for this one big thing is not if, but when. I think it's crystallizing that Neom is happening, and we've talked about this a lot on the 966. So there's just a lot to update you guys with, and a lot of you know some or not all, or some know all, but it's worth sort of synthesizing it here. So His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made a documentary appearance for a Discovery Channel program. And what I'd like to do, Richard, is drop some of his comments here because it's worth listening to yourself, and then we can talk about it. So here it is.
One, take one.
The population gonna jump in Saudi Arabia from today 33 million, in 2030 something between 50 to 55 million. So in 2030 we're gonna reach the full capacity of the existing infrastructure of Saudi Arabia. That's raised very important question that we need to create new city. They say in a lot of projects that happen in Saudi Arabia it can be done. This is very ambitious. They can keep saying that, and we can keep proving them wrong. So since we have empty place and we want to have a place for 10 million people, then let's think from scratch. So we talk about a lot of ideas. Why can't we build a circle and we start to connect it with movement, mobilities, trains, whatever, and then we start to build it slowly till it's completed for 10 million people. We brainstorm, we work with a team, we did a competition with the best designer on the whole planet. All of them, they provide us cities based on the existing methods, but with a better solutions. Except one adopt that idea, and he say, let's turn it from a circle to a line. Northwest of Saudi Arabia, untouched, almost empty. It have mix of topography, mountains, valleys, oases, dunes, beaches, islands, corals, from skiing till diving. That's the place. When he presented the line and turned from circle to a line, it was the width of it, it's almost 2 kilos. My problem that the infrastructure idea is good, but when you get in it with a 2 kilo of width, you don't feel it. I told the team, how about if we take that 2 kilo and we flip it to 2 towers to the whole line? Does that gonna work? It's gonna be massive. You know, any new city, it have to be top down. All the cities that we have today existing, it's based in all cities, problem, solution. So the existing model of cities, it's based on problem and solution because it's being fixed all the time. But if it's top down, then you can design something like this. Engineering and designer is not enough without art. Don't want to create a city without having the whole city as a piece of art. You have the models now. We work on it. It sounds very doable, and the ideas is amazing. So it's massive. It's huge. I wish that I can explain it in a smaller way, but it's project making money. It's project absorbing the demand that we assumed in Saudi Arabia, and it's something that create the new way of building city and new way of living. All cities based in problem and solution, and car is solution for a problem. I have a friend who moved to, he's an American friend, who moved to Miami. In Miami, when you get out from your office, you're on vacation. Immediately, you're next to entertainment, culture, sport, retails. So each day it has to be excitement to finish your work and go and enjoy it in Neom. So we are competing with Miami in that area. We think about what kind of opportunity we have. So we have the cash, we have the land, we have the stability, we have good infrastructure, we are a G20 country. We want to create the new civilization for tomorrow, and we need to encourage other nations to keep doing the same things for a better planet. Well, we are bringing all the piece of puzzle together. I don't know what's the outcome of it. That's gonna be the creativity of the people gonna live from the whole globe in Neom. I can promise you that's gonna be something new and creative, but what is it? It's unknown. We're gonna see.
Okay, Richard did a little drop there. Interesting from the Crown Prince, but there's sort of a lot to. I mean, we could make a whole episode on that. But 2 points that I want to make, and I really want you to jump in. I'm going to make this point and the next point, and then just go through 2 or 3 things that developed, and then I need you in on this point. So I hope you're paying close attention, Richard. So first thing, this is small. This interview is in English. So he's spoken in English before publicly, of course, but it's noteworthy to me that this is in English. For a man that thinks as quickly and with big ideas like he does, to speak in English has got to be, sort of frustrating for him, because he thinks so, like for him to convey his ideas on something so large, to speak in a second language has got to be tough. So his English is great, and it was great, I think, for Americans, whoever hears this, and hopefully, now our audience will hear it. It's interesting, like there's more personality there now that he communicates more and more in English. So I think that is worthwhile. So that's 30,000 feet up. And then there's some things in here, Richard, we talked about this off air and then with Professor Chadwick, Neom competing with Miami. And I think just making a comparable, like making a comp city to Neom, helps people understand what they might expect as it develops. That's common. So for example, like now I tell people Riyadh is increasingly like Dubai. So if you've been there, then you understand it's not that different. Riyadh just has a little bit more culture and personality and authenticity versus Dubai.
and less
not my
alcohol.
favorite place. Yeah, and less alcohol. Yeah. So I love that he did that, because I never thought about that, but the weather is similar, and the vibe of being able to work next to where you're living and be able to like arrive in a city where if you do some work and you walk outside, you're on vacation. I don't know. I think that helped. The line exhibit, by the way, we talked about this, Richard, see that in Riyadh as long as it's open, because that was another sort of moment where I realized how serious this was. But just thought that interview was really good. So I'm glad we got to share that. Last week, Richard, Neom and Volocopter, some tech that is especially interesting to me and you personally, because it would be so sweet to fly around in air taxis like this. They're now have done some tests at Neom, the first test campaign of air taxi flights in the northwest of Saudi Arabia, building on a reputation as a leader in technology. That's what they really want Neom to be. It was sort of, I guess it was 1 week of tests over the whole week. And I kind of don't know more about it in terms of like how far they flew or whatever, but man, would this technology be amazing if it really took off. And this is the type of stuff that Neom, they've invested in Volocopter and are interested in making sort of the showcase of that area. So there was that, which is amazing, would be its own story. New satellite images coming out recently showing some serious progress at Neom. We got a taste of this, Richard, when we had Jacob Mumm on the program from Bechtel. He was talking about, we're full on there. We're building that. We're working on the spine. We've got Trojena in the mix. Like, we are up there building. So if you think Neom is still an idea and not actually happening, think again, because it's happening. So, and I'll try to drop these in if we have some time, Richard, into the program here, because you can see sort of how much is going on there. New housing development in Neom, big deal. SAR 21 billion. So 21 billion reals, about $5.6 billion into residential communities, expansion, social infrastructure, all of that into the region. So pretty amazing. And then Richard, slap on your sunscreen. We're going to Sindalah Island for the last part of this. New yacht partnership announced with BWA Yachting to promote Sindalah as a luxury destination. That's a kind of amazing. I didn't see, I don't know anything about BWA Yachting, but it sounds truly, that's on brand for what they're building there. You also had SRMG signing a deal with Sindalah to create some media and creative industries there. It doesn't seem like that type of place necessarily. It seems like a pure luxury resort, but that'll be interesting to see what's happening there. So anyway, you could see more about the golf course on Sindalah Island, which also looks awesome. So
nice.
That's my one big thing. Nice. Welcome into my brain. That's it. Welcome into my brain.
It's flying, flying helicopters, electric helicopters, yachts, golf. We were both, as you said, out of town last week. And the pace of activity, the pace of announcements, the pace of accomplishments, the pace of progress is ridiculous. I mean, you miss a day. And this is especially true in Neom, and so many interesting things. Like Sindalah, which is really interesting because it's going to be one of the first out of the gates in terms of a viable resort. They and Red Sea Gateway. But when you look at Neom at the beginning, you didn't see that coming. They're making progress in many other areas, and I'm fascinated on their hydrogen play. I'm fascinated on a lot of their things. They just keep plugging. But I just want to remind people, the ambitions are to the moon and beyond. Let me rephrase that. The ambitions are to the stars. If they happen to get to the moon, it's still good. Because these things are so, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot coming real fast. Not all of it's going to hit, but that's not the point. And I think if you listen to those remarks by the Crown Prince, you understand his visions and his vision. And as we've said before all along, people like us who are paying attention have tried to be somewhat as objective as possible, as analytical as possible, still can't keep up with his aspirations because they're enormous.
Yeah, and if you think about like being the Crown Prince, and he like comes out with this plan, puts a lot of work into it, and has this plan, and he sort of explains the genesis of it and says, look, we're running out of space in these existing cities. We're given this unique chance to build from scratch. What are we going to do? Are we going to do the normal standard thing, or are we going to try something new? And he says we're going to try something new, and then he does this, or Saudi Arabia does this, and then all of a sudden it's all he hears is negativity and disbelief. And then we're 4 or 5 years down the road, and he's essentially saying, I heard everybody that said we don't really believe it. That doesn't really affect whether or not I'm determined to do it. I mean, if anything, it makes him more determined, but it's not like a deterrent. He just says, well, if you didn't believe me then, maybe believe now, because look at it. Look from the sky, the satellite images, look what's going in. We're going to do it. And that's something that we've been talking about, Richard, for 2 years since we started doing this podcast, pretty much, year and 9 months, basically. So, I mean, just interesting. I mean, like we talk about update your perspectives, but I mean, like there was a lot on Neom this week. So it was kind of good to touch on it. And we do talk about it a lot, but it's, 9 million people, in a city that a straight line is something to talk about.
Well, and again, if it's 107 kilometers, if you end up with 40, it's still impressive as hell.
That's exactly right. Yep. So Richard, oh, sorry, go ahead. No, please.
Well, I think your point of it in English is a good one. All we hear about in the U.S. press, Western press, but especially U.S. press, is sports washing, 9/11, Khashoggi, pariah. Nicholas Kristof wrote a piece recently for the New York Times comparing, the Crown Prince to Putin. The rest of the globe, especially the global South, look at MBS and they're going, this is great. It's intriguing. It's promising. And we're not saying he doesn't have his problems. We're not saying he hasn't made mistakes. We're not saying any of that. They're just looking at it in a whole different lens that we are. And, a lens that isn't colored in a particular way. And I think we've really, we continue to limit our understanding of what's going on and why it matters. I think maybe in administration and in professional classes in terms of diplomacy and policy making, they're understanding it better. And you can see that U.S. policy is adapting and updating. But in general, you still have these tropes that seem to assume that the rest of the world thinks the same way, and they don't. They're excited about this guy in Saudi Arabia. They think it's they think it's positive and useful and constructive. They don't look at it the same way we do. We're outnumbered.